My name is Donna B., and I am 45 years old. I'm sitting in my home office staring at a lawsuit that might be the most insane thing I've ever seen. And I say that as someone who's been divorced for 8 years and thought I'd already survived the worst kind of betrayal a relationship can offer. My ex-boyfriend, Veronica, is suing me for palimony after 11 months of dating. 11 months. Not a decade. Not some long-term partnership with shared assets and interwoven finances. 11 months of dinners, weekends, and what I thought was a normal adult relationship. Let me back up, because the fact that this is real still doesn't feel real. I met Veronica last year at a wine tasting event. He was charming in that practiced way, the kind of person who makes you feel like you're the most interesting woman in the room, while never actually saying anything specific about himself. He told me he worked as a consultant. When I asked what kind, he smiled and said he helped businesses with restructuring. It was vague enough to sound impressive and flexible enough to never be checked. Red flag number one that I missed. We started dating and it felt easy. That's what hooked me. I was 45, tired of games, tired of drama, tired of relationships that felt like work on top of work. Veronica seemed mature, independent, low maintenance. He didn't text obsessively. He didn't get jealous. He didn't need constant reassurance. He had his own life, his own place. He even insisted on keeping his apartment for tax purposes, which I accepted because I'm not an accountant and I didn't feel like interrogating someone I was trying to trust. He moved into my place after 4 months. Yes, I know, too fast. But the kids only came every other weekend, and he seemed respectful about that. My son is 16. My daughter is 14. They tolerated him in that guarded teenage way, but they didn't dislike him. And honestly, that felt like a miracle. Veronica paid me $800 a month toward expenses, which made him seem responsible. It wasn't half the mortgage, but it was something. And he framed it like he wanted to contribute, like he didn't want to be a burden. I thought I'd found a grown-up relationship. Then 3 weeks ago, he sat me down with a serious face like we were about to talk about health or death or something irreversible. He said we needed to talk about our future. I told him okay, thinking maybe he was going to ask about moving the relationship forward in a normal way, maybe a joint account, maybe plans for next year. That's not what he meant. I think it's time we formalize our relationship financially, he said. What do you mean? I asked. Like a joint account. He laughed softly like I was adorable for not understanding. No, honey. I mean legally protecting my interests. I've given up opportunities for this relationship. My lawyer says I'm entitled to palimony. I almost spit out my coffee. Your lawyer says palimony, I repeated. We're not married. We've been dating less than a year. He looked at me like I was being naive. Common law marriage applies after 6 months of cohabitation in this state. That's not true, I said immediately, because even if I'm not an accountant, I can read. This state doesn't recognize common law marriage. His face changed then. The charm slipped. The warmth went out of his eyes. Well, he said coldly, my lawyer says I have a case. I've been your domestic partner. I've contributed to this household. I deserve half of what you've acquired during our relationship. I felt the room tilt. Veronica, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, you paid $800 a month. That's less than half the mortgage. And you kept your own place. You've lost nothing. I'm entitled to more, he said, and the entitlement in his voice was so naked it made my skin crawl. The house appreciation, your investment gains, your bonus from work. My lawyer calculated it at about $200,000. $200,000. For 11 months of dating. I stared at him like he'd grown another face. Are you seriously trying to extort me? It's not extortion, he said calmly. It's what I deserve. Sign this agreement or I'll see you in court. He slid a document across my kitchen island. 20 pages of dense, legal-ish nonsense demanding a lump sum of $200,000 plus $3,000 a month for 3 years. Like I was being fined for daring to let him into my home. I stood up. Get out, I said. He blinked. Excuse me. Pack your stuff and get out of my house, I repeated. Now. His eyes sharpened. You can't kick me out. I live here. You are a guest who pays rent, I said. No lease. No tenant rights beyond notice, and I'm telling you right now to leave, or I'm calling the police for trespassing. He grabbed the papers, stormed to the bedroom, and started throwing clothes into a suitcase while yelling that I'd regret this. He slammed the door so hard, a picture fell off the wall. That was 3 weeks ago. Yesterday I got served. He actually filed the palimony lawsuit, and as I sat there holding the documents in my hands, the shock slowly turned into something else. something sharp and deliberate. Because I'm a software engineer by trade, and research is my hobby. Deep research. The kind that doesn't stop until it finds the truth. And something about Veronica never quite added up. So I opened my laptop. Time to dig. I started with the basics, the kind of searches you do when you're trying to prove to yourself you're not being paranoid. His LinkedIn profile, his consulting website, the little digital breadcrumbs he'd left behind that were supposed to make him look legitimate without being traceable. Veronica claimed his last name was Reeves. I found a Veronica Reeves profile on LinkedIn that looked like him. Same face, same smile, same polished little bio about strategic restructuring and transformation. But something was off. The profile photo looked older, like it had been taken before we met. The activity was dead, no updates in 2 years, no interactions, no coworkers tagging him, no company announcements. For someone who supposedly lived in business, he had no business life. So I reverse image searched his profile picture. That's when the floor opened. The same photo appeared under a different name, different career, different city. Veronica Caldwell, interior designer. The next hit was worse. Veronica Morrison, life coach. Same man, same face, 3 identities, 3 last names, 3 careers that all sounded impressive and all required exactly 0 verification. I sat there staring at my laptop screen, the room too quiet, my hands cold on the mouse. This wasn't a mistake. This was a system. I paid for a background check. It felt dramatic, like something people do in movies, not something a 45-year-old woman does on a Tuesday night after making pasta. But then I remembered the lawsuit sitting on my desk, asking me to hand over $200,000 to a man I dated for less than a year. So I clicked purchase and waited. The results came back like a punch. His legal name wasn't Veronica Reeves. His legal name was Victor Allen Morrison. And Victor Allen Morrison was married. Married to a woman named Teresa Morrison since 2018. Still married. Active. No separation filing. No divorce in progress. Active address listed at an apartment complex 30 minutes away, an address he'd never mentioned, not once, even when we were arguing about groceries and weekend plans like we were building a life. I stared at the marriage record until my eyes hurt. All those nights he'd told me he was meeting a client. All those weekends he'd said he needed quiet focus time. All those last-minute trips when he'd disappear and come back with vague stories and a new cologne smell clinging to his jacket. It wasn't mysterious. It was double-booked, and it got worse. The background check didn't just show the marriage, it showed a trail. Court records, multiple filings, names that made my stomach tighten because they looked like mine on a different page. 2019, sued a man for breach of promise to marry. Case dismissed. 2020, Palimony lawsuit. Settled. 2021. Domestic partnership financial support claim. Dismissed. 2022. Another demand letter tied to cohabitation claims. Victor wasn't having bad luck in love. Victor was running a business. I called my lawyer immediately. Robert handled my divorce years ago. Straight shooter. The kind of man who doesn't waste words. I told him what I found, and on the other end of the line, he went quiet for a long beat. Donna, he said finally, this isn't just a civil dispute. This is fraud. If he's married and concealed it, that's massive. And if he's done this before, we can treat it as a pattern. What do I do? I asked. And my voice didn't sound like mine anymore. It sounded like someone standing in the middle of a trap that had already snapped shut. First, we respond to the lawsuit, Robert said. Then we countersue. And I want you to consider contacting the DA's office once we have everything organized. The DA, I repeated. Yes, he said, because this looks organized. I stared at the marriage record again. What about his wife? I asked. That's your call, Robert said carefully, but if it were me, I'd want to know. So I found her. Teresa Morrison had a normal online presence. LinkedIn, Facebook, photos from years ago with Victor in wedding pictures. Recent posts were mostly work-related and family holidays, but the most recent ones felt odd. Solo shots. No ring in the last year's worth of photos. A tired look in her eyes I recognized too well. I sent her a message on LinkedIn because it felt like the least invasive way to drop a grenade. Hi, Teresa. This is awkward but important. I recently dated someone named Victor Morrison and just discovered he is legally married to you. I think you deserve to know. If you're willing, we need to talk. She responded within an hour. "Oh God," she wrote, "not again. Can we meet?" Not again. That phrase sat in my chest like ice. We met at a coffee shop downtown the next day. Teresa walked in looking defeated before I even said a word. She wasn't angry. She wasn't shocked. She looked like someone who'd been carrying something heavy for too long and was tired of pretending it wasn't there. She sat down, took a breath, and said, "So he got you too?" "Two," I repeated. She nodded once, slow. "You're not the first, not even the third." Then she pulled out a folder. I wish I could say that was dramatic, but it wasn't. It was practical. Like she'd done this enough times that she knew how the story went. Inside were screenshots, bank records, court documents, notes, timelines. Teresa had been building her own case for divorce, but Victor kept dodging service. Every time she tried, he'd vanish, then reappear with love-bombing apologies and just enough charm to make her doubt her own instincts. "I've been paralyzed," she admitted, voice low. "He kept saying he'd take me for everything. He'd claim I was controlling. He'd say I forced him to look for love elsewhere because I was cruel. He threatened to ruin me." I looked at her and felt something shift. My anger wasn't just mine anymore. It was shared. We compared notes. The $800 Victor paid me every month. The responsible contribution that made me feel like he wasn't freeloading. Teresa pulled up a bank statement and turned her phone toward me. It came from her account. He had been using his wife's money to pay rent in my home while setting up a palimony claim against me. Like he was funding the con with marital assets, moving money around like props in a stage play. I felt sick. Then Teresa showed me the part that made my blood boil. Screenshots from Victor's phone, taken when he'd left it unlocked. Messages between him and the same lawyer named, in his past cases, Mitchell Vaughn. Victor: "Donna's perfect. House worth $800K. Good portfolio. Lonely divorce. Easy mark." Mitchell: "Get cohabitation documented. Save receipts. We need 6 months minimum." Victor: "Already got her to let me redecorate. Keeping all receipts. She thinks I love her." My stomach turned, but then something cold and satisfying slid into place. Because Victor had made a mistake. In his lawsuit, he claimed he was single. He claimed he'd given up his apartment for me. He claimed financial dependence. All lies. All provable. Under oath. That's not just a bad strategy. That's perjury. Teresa looked at me, eyes steady now, and said, "If we do this together, we can end it." I nodded. "We do it together." I left that coffee shop with 2 things in my bag: copies of her documentation and a clarity so sharp it felt like a weapon. Victor thought he'd found another woman to pressure into paying for his life. He hadn't realized he'd just connected 2 of us, and that was going to be his biggest mistake. Robert was practically vibrating when I dropped the folder on his desk. He's not an excitable man. He's the kind of lawyer who keeps his voice low and his sentences short, the kind who lets facts do the heavy lifting. But as he flipped through Teresa's documentation, his eyebrows kept climbing higher, and by the time he reached the screenshots between Victor and Mitchell Vaughn, he leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath. "Well," he said almost pleasantly, "this just became very interesting." We moved fast. Robert filed our response to Victor's Palimony lawsuit within 48 hours. It wasn't defensive, it was surgical. We denied every claim, attached evidence contradicting every sworn statement, and then filed a countersuit for fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and conversion for money obtained under false pretenses. At the same time, Robert sent a formal referral packet to the district attorney's office. Not a rant, not a plea, just a clean, organized pattern of behavior spanning multiple victims. The DA's office called back the next day. "This appears to be organized fraud," Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Watts said. "If the evidence holds, and especially if there's coordination with counsel, we're looking at conspiracy." Conspiracy. That word landed differently than everything else. It wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't even about Teresa. It was about a system built to extract money from people who trusted too easily and wanted connection too badly. Victor, meanwhile, did what scammers always do when they sense control slipping. He escalated. Within days of our filing, he launched a social media campaign, painting me as an abusive partner who'd thrown a vulnerable man out on the street. He posted photos of us together, with captions about powerful women preying on emotional men, about being discarded after giving everything. People I barely knew started messaging me. Some asked if I was okay. Others were more pointed, asking if there was truth to the abuse allegations. My kids saw it. My ex-husband called me, furious and confused. Donna, what the hell is going on? This guy is saying you abused him. I told him everything. He went quiet, then said, Jesus, you really know how to pick them. Then, after a beat, do you need me to make a statement about what kind of parent you are? Maybe, I said, thanks. Victor wasn't done. He showed up at my office building one afternoon and made a scene in the lobby, crying loudly about how I'd ruined his life and how he'd given up everything for me. Security escorted him out, but the damage was already done. HR called me in immediately. I brought the binder. Marriage certificate, prior lawsuits, bank records, screenshots, Teresa's affidavit. HR went from concerned to horrified in about 5 minutes. We'll ban him from the premises immediately, they said. This is harassment. Then came the pretrial hearing. The courtroom was packed. Victor showed up in a conservative suit, looking every bit the wronged partner. Mitchell Vaughn stood beside him, just as greasy as his online reviews suggested, gold pinky ring flashing every time he gestured. Judge Patricia Hawkins presided, an older woman with a reputation for zero tolerance for nonsense. Mitchell went first. He spun a sob story about a vulnerable man taken advantage of by a wealthy older woman who promised a future, then discarded him. Victor cried on cue, dabbing his eyes with a handkerchief. The performance was polished. Then Robert stood. Your Honor, he said calmly, before we proceed, there's a critical issue of perjury we need to address. Mitchell shot to his feet. Objection, inflammatory and prejudicial. Judge Hawkins raised a hand. Overruled. Proceed. Robert didn't rush. The plaintiff claims he is single, he said, sliding a document forward. Here is his marriage certificate to Teresa Morrison, dated 2018, still valid. Victor went pale. The plaintiff claims he gave up his apartment to move in with my client, Robert continued. Here is his active lease, paid for by his wife. Judge Hawkins' expression darkened. The plaintiff claims financial dependence, Robert said, voice steady. Here are bank records showing over $200,000 in accounts sourced from prior settlements and payments. The room went very quiet. Your Honor, Robert said, this is not an isolated incident. We have evidence of at least 5 similar lawsuits, all following the same pattern, and we have evidence of coordination with counsel. Mitchell demanded a recess. Judge Hawkins leaned forward. Mr. Vaughn, your client has submitted false statements under oath. That is perjury, a felony. Mr. Morrison, are you currently married? Victor swallowed. It's complicated. Yes or no, the judge said. Yes. And did you state in your filing that you were single? Yes. Judge Hawkins turned to the bailiff. Please contact the district attorney's office. We have probable cause for perjury. Victor spun toward Mitchell. You said this would work. Mitchell backed away. I advised based on information you provided. You helped me with the other cases, Victor snapped. Judge Hawkins' eyes sharpened. Other cases. Mitchell froze. How many times have you appeared in court with this plaintiff? The judge asked. Mitchell's shoulders sagged. 4. The courtroom erupted into murmurs. Judge Hawkins banged her gavel. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Plaintiff is ordered to pay defendant's legal fees. Mr. Vaughn, I am referring you to the State Bar for investigation. Outside the courtroom, Victor lost it completely. He screamed at Teresa, accusing her of betrayal, of ruining everything. She calmly handed him divorce papers right there in the hallway. I've been trying to serve you for 2 years, she said. Now you can't run. Mitchell tried to slip away, but Victor chased him down the hall, screaming about promises and partnerships. Phones were out everywhere. The footage went viral before lunch. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something close to peace. The fallout moved faster than I expected. Like once the first brick came loose, the entire wall collapsed under its own weight. 2 days after the hearing, Victor and Mitchell Vaughn were arrested. Not quietly, not discreetly, but with enough visibility that there was no room left for spin. The charges were heavy. Conspiracy to commit fraud, multiple counts of fraud, perjury, filing false legal documents, extortion. The DA's office didn't hedge their language. They called it what it was, a coordinated scheme targeting romantic partners under the guise of non-traditional relationship compensation. Local news picked it up almost immediately. Serial romance scammer and attorney. Arrested in Palimony fraud ring. They interviewed some of the other men Victor had gone after. One of them, Derek Hoffman, looked relieved more than angry. I always knew something was off, he said. But she made me think I was crazy. I'm just glad it's over. Another man, Rajesh Patel, was furious. He'd settled out of court years earlier for $50,000. "I want every penny back," he said, with interest. Teresa filed for divorce the same week. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't been so sad. The prenup Victor had insisted on years ago, the one he bragged about as his safety net, ended up protecting Teresa instead. Victor walked away with nothing. No house, no savings, no leverage. The very legal tools he'd used to threaten others closed in on him from all sides. The criminal case didn't drag on long. Victor pleaded guilty to reduced charges. 2 counts of fraud, 1 count of perjury. 18 months in minimum security, followed by 3 years of probation. Restitution totaling $300,000 to be divided among his victims. Mitchell Vaughn fared worse. The investigation uncovered he'd been running similar schemes with multiple clients, not just Victor. He lost his law license, received a 3-year prison sentence, and was ordered to pay nearly $1 million in restitution. When the sentencing came down, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Teresa texted me afterward. "It's done," she wrote. "Thank you for not letting him keep doing this." I told her she didn't owe me anything. She replied with a simple heart emoji, and that was enough. At work, things settled. HR circulated a brief internal memo banning Victor from the premises permanently. The social media posts disappeared as fast as they'd gone up. My ex-husband, to his credit, made a quiet statement when asked, saying I was a dedicated parent and that any claims otherwise were absurd. My kids handled it better than I did. My son shrugged one night and said, "At least you found out before he became our stepdad." My daughter added, "Next time, maybe Google them first." Fair point. 6 months later, my life looks normal again. Boring even. And I love that. Victor still owes me money. Between legal fees and damages, I'm about $15,000 ahead, but that number doesn't matter much. Restitution payments will come slowly if they come at all. I'm not holding my breath. The real win wasn't financial. It was clarity. I did run into Victor once more. It was at a grocery store, of all places. He was out on bail, thinner, unshaven, looking like someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. He spotted me near the produce section and approached, like he still believed proximity meant access. "Donna," he said quietly, "can we talk?" "No," I replied. He looked desperate. "I'm sorry. It started small. It got out of control. I actually did care about you." "You texted your lawyer calling me an easy mark," I said. "You used me. You met my kids under false pretenses and tried to extort me. We have nothing to talk about." His eyes filled with tears, the real kind this time, ugly and uncontrolled. "I'm going to jail. My life is over." "You did that," I said evenly. "You had a decent wife. You could have had a normal life. You chose greed." I walked away. He called after me, but I didn't turn around. Some chapters don't need closure conversations. They need distance. I started dating again recently. Slowly, carefully. Background checks aren't paranoia anymore. They're prudence. I met someone nice last month, a pediatrician. Verifiable employment. No secret spouses. No mysterious lawyers lurking in the background. We're taking it slow, and that feels right. I did get a letter from Victor last week, from prison. I didn't open it. Teresa texted to say she got one too. She didn't open hers either. Some stories end better when you don't read the last page. If there's a lesson in all of this, it's simple. Trust your gut. Verify what you're told. And if someone starts talking about legal entitlements and lawyers before you've even made it to a year, run. If they claim common law marriage where it doesn't exist, run faster. And if their life sounds impressive but leaves no paper trail, stop believing the performance. I'm 45 years old. I'm wiser, I'm calmer, and I'm free.